The candle burned low in the forgotten chamber, its wax pooling like molten gold upon the ancient desk. Master Aurelius then hunched over a crumbling tome, his fingers blackened with soot, his once ivory robe stained with blood, some his, some belonging to those who had stood in his way. For decades, he had wandered through the ruins of fallen civilizations, scouring forbidden texts, defiling graves in search of lost knowledge. He had watched his peers succumb to time, their minds eroded by madness or their flesh devoured by decay, but he would not share their fate. The Philosopher's Stone was real, and he was close.
The Blood Toll.
His latest discovery had led him here to a ruined abbey, hidden deep within the mountains, where the wind howled like a dying thing. Within its crumbling walls lay an altar of human bone, its surface inscribed with symbols that had not been spoken aloud in centuries. A ritual lost to time, the stone could not be crafted from mere metals. Gold and silver were Lais Baubil's four kings, who mistook wealth for power. True transformation required something more, something ancient. Blood, flesh, the essence of the living. Aurelius had learned this the hard way. The first attempt had failed. He had bled a rat upon the altar, nothing, then a dog, still nothing. He had killed a beggar in the streets of Luthenwald, his hands trembling if he carved the arcane runes into cooling flesh. The corpse had crumbled into ash. It had to be a sacrifice of greater worth. A life that meant something. An alchemist must suffer for his craft. And so, he had cut out his own eye. The pain had nearly broken him, his vision dissolving into darkness, his blood slicking the stone beneath him. But as his sight failed, something else awakened. The altar hummed. The air turned thick with the stench of rot and sulphur. Shadows stretched and twisted, writhing like worms beneath his feet. From the depths of the abbey came a sound of rasping breath, a thing waking after centuries of sleep. And then, a voice.
The price of immortality.
It did not whisper. It did not scream. It spoke through his bones, reverberating through his very marrow. A language before language, a voice before sound. An entity that had existed long before men dared to dream of eternity. It knew what he sought. It could give him the Philosopher's Stone. But nothing is given freely. The ritual demanded a greater sacrifice, not just blood, not just suffering. It required his humanity. Aurelius hesitated. He had studied alchemy since he was a child, devoting his entire life to unraveling the secrets of creation. He had abandoned love, forsaken comfort, sacrificed all that made him a man. What was a soul, compared to eternity? His lips formed the words of the final incantation. The shadows erupted. A force ripped through him, hollowing him out from the inside. He felt his veins turn to molten gold, his skin hardening into something unnatural. His heartbeat slowed, stopped. And then the pain came. The knowledge he had sought for decades poured into him. But it was too much. The weight of all things, the suffering of centuries, the knowledge of every alchemist who had come before him crushed his mind like brittle glass. His body shrank and twisted, his flesh peeling, reforming, reshaping. He was not Aurelius then anymore. He was something else.
The stone's curse.
The Philosopher's Stone gleamed upon the altar, perfect and terrible, a thing not meant for mortal hands. The last alchemist reached for it, his new form reflected in the polished surface. He was not a man, not a god, not even a creature of flesh and bone. He was gold, his limbs elongated, his skin a smooth, gleaming prison. His mouth opened to scream, but no sound came, only the clink of metal, hollow and final. The Philosopher's Stone granted eternal life, but it did not grant freedom. It had never been a means to escape death. It was a trap, a promise whispered to the desperate, a curse that turned the seeker into the sought. The shadows swallowed the abbey, the wind howled through its ruins, and the golden statue of Aurelius then, eyes forever wide in horror, stood in silence, waiting for the next fool who would come seeking eternity.